Our friend Karol Markowicz is in the mix right now here on Clay and Buck. She's a New York Post columnist, author, has a great Substack, and has the Karol Markowicz Show, which is on the Clay and Buck Network. And Karol, let me say, happy Passover.
Oh, thank you so much. How's it
Now,
going?
let's talk about what is going on here on these college campuses. Columbia University shut down class today. I mean, that feels like a pretty big move. What's happening here?
So these protests have been allowed to fester on these campuses, in particular at Columbia and at Yale, but also in other places. And these kids have gotten very bold. They are, maybe some of them were there because they believed in the cause, of Palestine or whatever, but the majority of them are bad actors. And the Jew hatred is extremely blatant. They've been screaming at this, people who are outwardly Jewish. They've been screaming names at them. They've been screaming, go back to Poland. They block Jewish kids and Jewish professors from accessing the campus. They've been doing some really crazy things. And it's wild because I think if any other group was being targeted like this, maybe not Christians, but every other group, the governor would have a long time ago stepped in, called in National Guard, made something happen. And I think that it really shows the hierarchy in America, and I think people need to open their eyes.
Are Jewish people recognizing now, Buck and I have been talking about this, Karol, thanks for joining us, that you guys are just seen as white people. And it doesn't matter that you marched for civil rights in the 1960s, and it doesn't matter that you stood up for BLM, and that many people of Jewish faith, basically have tried to stand up for, but many people have tried to stand up in the Jewish faith for oppressed people for generations. And then you get attacked, 1,200 Jews get killed for being Jewish, and it doesn't even matter because people in America now on the left see you as white. Is this registering with traditional, maybe Democrat Jewish voters in a way that over the last several years it hadn't?
I hope so. I think about this a lot, and I write about it and look at the numbers a lot. There has definitely been a shift in the last decade. So it's not like it's happening immediately right now. It's been happening. Trump got, more, a wider percentage. I think he got 35% maybe in 2020, 5% higher than he got in 2016. I mean, these numbers are moving in the right direction. It still is not the majority, obviously, but for example, in 2022, the Jews of Long Island, the Jewish vote of Long Island might have swung the House to Republicans. I mean, that's what the numbers are showing. So it's not that Jews are going to majority overnight start voting Republican, but the move has been happening. The shift has been happening. And I'd like to see it continue. Obviously, I think the Democrats have been terrible for the Jewish, people. The funny thing about being considered white, I say to my kids, like, oh, at least we get to be white now. Like, obviously, it's always when it's the bad thing, that's what we get to be. We're white when it's bad. We're not white when that's better.
Yeah.
Check out Karol's podcast, by the way, on the Clay and Buck Network, the Karol Markowicz Show. Karol, what I'm wondering is, what do you think happens if they Clay and I were talking about this before. New York in April, pretty nice place in terms of the weather. And if this is a little bit like an Occupy-style protest, like Occupy Wall Street from back in 2011, right? If that's the case, and even if they're arrested, they decide to come back, what is the university going to do, right? I mean, because New York, and I'm sure New Haven up in Connecticut has a similar situation, protesters or rather trespassing, trespassing is really only illegal in a serious way if it's on Capitol Hill grounds on January 6th. Any other time, they're not going to treat it like a serious thing at all, right? So what are these schools going to do? I'm not sure that these protesters plan on going anywhere anytime soon.
Right. Well, this is where the rubber meets the road. And you're absolutely right, where the hypocrisy is insane. I mean, I hate to keep saying that any other group or any other, affiliation would be in so much trouble. But because it's this far left thing that the liberals are so worried about them and they're so concerned with losing their vote. And it's this whole problem for the Democrats that I don't know what they're going to do. But I think these colleges really need to be sent a message. And I hope that people do it. It doesn't just have to be Jews. sane non-Jews have to be able to send that message too, to say, I don't pay my money for this insanity to go on my kid's college campus. Remote learning in 2024 because Jews are afraid to be on campus is absurd, and I'm not standing for it. And, that would be where we need to go. But does it happen on these campuses, or is it just too far gone? I've been kind of for years saying that the college campuses are lost, that we should focus on K through 12 because that's really where the battles are happening now. But these college campuses are worse than I even imagined. And so I don't know. I don't know what they do here. The 2024, election obviously looms very large in all the imaginations of these people, and they know that if they have an incident with the far left, Biden could lose the election. So I think all of that is being considered.
Karol, after Charlottesville, we were told we need to have a national conversation about anti-Semitism and white supremacy and that toxic combination of the two. Biden claimed that the reason he had to run for president was because of what happened in Charlottesville. Mm-hmm. Charlottesville is the right's failure when it came to marching and saying we won't be replaced in the anti-Jew slogans there. And we had a major national discussion, conversation. Seems like we always only have national discussions and conversations when people on the right screw up. We've now got hundreds, if not thousands, of Charlottesvilles taking place all over the country.
Yep.
How does the left reconcile their discussions around Charlottesville, including Joe Biden's own presidential campaign, with now anti-Semitism flourishing in America on a level, frankly, that's never occurred to my knowledge in my life and in much of the lives of people listening to us right now?
Well, that's the thing. Again, the hypocrisy doesn't matter to them. They don't care that there was 10 people at Charlottesville and with their stupid torches and saying dumb things. I knew at the time that was not representative of the right. Immediately, everybody sane on the right denounced those people. We don't see that same denunciation happening on the left. I mean, that's really where it is. And I think that it's important to just keep pushing the idea that this is happening almost entirely on the left. There is no anti-Semitic movement happening on the right. Look, are there anti-Semites on the right? Of course. Are there people who are going to hate Jews in any group? Of course. But the idea that you can be openly Jew-hating on the right is just one that is not true. As soon as anybody is, kind of openly hating of Jews, they get shunned by the right. They get criticized. They get mocked. That does not happen on the left. Joe Biden is fighting for all of those votes, and that's a real big split. Charlottesville, we didn't make heroes out of those people. These college campuses, they are making the heroes out of them. They're saying that these protesters are just like the ones who marched on Selma, etc., and they're turning them into martyrs and heroes. We don't do that on the right with people who hate Jews. It just is not the case.
Hey, Karol, Clay and I were going back and forth in the last hour on. Clay raised if you're paying $75 to $100,000 to send your kid to one of these places, are you going to be? And I know they're young adults, right? They're 18 and up, but are you going to be outraged? And I said, well, I don't know. I know some left-wing parents in New York who would probably applaud this kind of thing.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that you're right. I know left-wing parents who would also applaud this, but there has to be a saner middle. But of course, the concern is, and I know the three of us know this, the saner middle becomes very quiet when the left comes after them. And they did that during COVID. They didn't say a word. They made sure that they kept their mouths shut in case anybody was mean to them on Facebook or Twitter. And they're doing the same thing now. And that's really where the dividing line is. Yes, there are leftist parents who are thrilled that their little Johnny is, at Columbia and targeting Jewish students for abuse because that's what the popular thing to do right now is. But there have to be the saner middle people who are quiet, and they have to stop being quiet. And I don't know if they will, but that's really where this needs to go.
Karol, you moved recently from New York to Florida like Buck. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about the jury pool, which you theoretically could have been a part of potentially during your time living in New York. Do you think anybody that is on that jury, the 12 that are seated or the 6 alternates, depending on who ends up ultimately making a decision, will be willing to publicly refuse to convict Trump? Or do you think the societal pressure of living in New York City, the lifestyle that's commensurate with that, makes it so difficult for anyone to even be willing to stand on that island?
It's a really good question. They released what each of the jury, where they get their news. And, the shocking thing to me was only one of them got the news from the New York Post. I mean, everybody in New York reads the Post. I'm not just saying that because I write for them. It is the paper that everybody reads on the subway. And the fact that only one juror is a Post reader was really surprising. And that's concerning because if you have a lot of people who are listening to CNN or NPR, or reading the New York Times, you're going to have a much tougher time having somebody vote to not convict. But you're right. They get a lot of social pressure there. The thing I will say about Donald Trump, and I know that you guys have said similar things in the past, once someone is like, that's it, I'm supporting Trump, it's very hard to get them off that hand because they've already been through all the abuse. They've been targeted. They've been called racist. They've been called, all kinds of names. But once they've kind of overcome that and they've decided, no, I'm supporting this guy, it's really hard to get somebody off of that. So I think that if there is a Trump supporter on that jury, it makes it much more likely that they will stand their ground and that they'll find him not guilty.
Subscribe to the Karol Markowicz podcast, everybody, on the Clay and Buck Network. Download the iHeartRadio app. Look up Carol's name. Starts with a K, Karol, and give it a listen. Fantastic stuff. Karol, always appreciate you being with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Love being on.
And Clay, Carol's been with me at the range. She's got a good eye. She's a good shot. And whether you're new to firearms or a bit seasoned, I want to tell you about Bear Creek Arsenal, veteran-owned and operated gun manufacturer based in Sanford, North Carolina. They make precision-oriented products made here in America. Bear Creek Arsenal was founded by engineers with over 2 decades of experience in the firearms industry. These guys really know their stuff, and they offer over 25 calibers at Bear Creek Arsenal at a fraction of the price of the competition. And they're able to do this because they've got no middleman fees. My first Bear Creek Arsenal firearm was their AR-15 model, BCA-15. You can check it out for yourself. You're not going to believe the quality, the craftsmanship, and the price point. This should be one of those great days where you realize, hold on a second, you mean I can get top quality stuff at a price that I didn't believe? Yes. With Bear Creek Arsenal, when it comes to firearms, you absolutely can. Go to bearcreekarsenal.com/buck. Use my name, Buck, as your promo code. Get 10% off your first order. That's bearcreekarsenal.com/buck. Use my name, Buck, as your promo code for 10% off.